human activities impact on any of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tenney. Mr. Babbitt, 3 minutes.
There's no question that the threat of creating damage to our environment is real and something that needs attention, and government has a role in helping us set the right standards and be on a path that allows us to not have such risk in damaging our environment. So I'm absolutely in support of going down that path. When I think about how to do that, because the devil is always in the details, a couple of thoughts come to mind. As a country, we of course do value the opportunity to be energy independent. That has economic impact for us. How we get there, of course, does make a difference. I believe that the government is appropriate in setting high standards that reduce the risk of our damaging the environment, and at the same time, providing some incentives to help us transition from where we are now with many of our renewables not being as cost effective as fossil fuels, to set a path that allows us to transition to get to where we want to be and reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. I believe that we have a lot of smart people here in New York State that really are interested in helping us solve these problems, and that there is much we can do to transition from where we are to where we need to be by supporting these entrepreneurs and scientists and others that really want to help us get there. I have a lot of confidence in that, and I see it unfold in our world here in upstate New York. I'm also a believer that when it comes to incentives, we want to be thinking about incentives that are crafted to help us with that transition and not be incentives that we're going to be dependent on for the longer term. And finally, the government deciding where are we going to put government resources in helping this transition shouldn't be corporate welfare with the government trying to pick winners or losers. That's best done by the private sector. That's best done by private investors who are better equipped to take that risk. So I'm all in favor of our addressing the threat of climate change, doing that with the right incentives to transition from where we are to where we need to be. But let's not let government be the one to pick the winners and losers, and let's help create the right environment to support our entrepreneurs and smart people who are very interested in helping us improve our progress in getting there.
Thank you, Mr. Babbitt. We'll move on to our next question, which concerns healthcare, and the first respondent will be Ms. Tenney. The United States pays more per capita for healthcare than any other developed country in the world, yet our outcomes are worse. In a recent World Health Organization study, when measurements such as rates of life expectancy and affordable care, the U.S. ranks 31st among developed nations. We rank number 1 in terms of cost of health care. So, what government actions should we take to improve our circumstance? Is the Affordable Care Act, known popularly as Obamacare, working? Does it need to be fixed or abandoned? Ms. Tenney, 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I don't support Obamacare. I think that it needs to be repealed. I think when people say repeal and replace, I don't know, Republicans don't talk very well about how you replace it, and I think there's a lot of things that we can do as a small business owner. Obamacare is probably the single biggest government burden, centrally planned government bureaucracy that has hurt our business and forced us to have to lay employees off. Before we had, and we provided health care insurance to our employees long before it was mandated to be provided, because it gave us a competitive advantage against many other businesses in the area. Also, we were competing against government, school districts, and others who had more affordable health care. What Obamacare has done is centrally planned and created basically health insurance. It's insurance, and bureaucrats are deciding who takes care of us now, not our doctors, not the relationship with their patients. And so to me, we need to go back to another model that would empower individuals with a consumer-driven model, have risk pools to make sure that we cover people who have pre-existing conditions and people that may have not access to health care are going to be coming in through the Medicaid systems. I mean, in fact, one of my opponents, Mr. Babinek, his company specializes, he invested in a company that actually takes employers and takes their employees and puts them onto the Medicaid system to save the employer, but it actually is a burden onto the taxpayers. We can't keep doing that because when Obamacare was passed, the Medicaid system was burdened so hard in New York State. I mean, we went from $52 billion a year to over 60, and New York State right now has the highest per capita Medicaid burden of any state in the nation right now because largely Obamacare and the healthcare exchanges. And not only that, it's the per capita dollar amount is twice Texas and California combined. So a consumer-driven model, allowing patients to go across state lines, allowing risk pools and companies to work together to keep their rates down, have competition. Government centrally planned healthcare is not competition. If you want to know how single payer works, look at the VA. It's a disaster. My son is currently an active duty Marine. The kind of services that he would expect at the VA are devastating. We are letting our vets literally stand in line to die because they're not getting services because of the VA. And that's a whole other issue, but that's where you would be going if we went from worse Obamacare to the worst, a VA-type single-payer system. So I would scrap the entire thing and go back to a free market, consumer-driven model. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tenney. Mr. Babinek, 3 minutes.
Since my company, TriNet, is in the business of helping small and mid-sized companies with all their headaches of being an employer, including the provisioning of benefits, it is an area that I know a lot about and one that I felt really good over the years in helping companies navigate through all of the decisions involved in healthcare. No question about it, when Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act was first proposed in 2007, I got involved in actually advocating against it because I could see this was going to create a huge problem for small businesses. Spent a lot of time working on it, and when it did pass, my company has been involved in helping to implement how that Affordable Care Act is done with these smaller companies. And having small companies that actually do have people that are Medicaid eligible will be part of the solution. So when it comes to healthcare reform, what I believe needs to be done includes providing more choice. We all know as consumers that if you have more choice, you will end up taking the choice that gives you the best value for whatever investment you make. And things like allowing you to buy insurance across state lines is something I've been very much a proponent of. But as you make more choice, you also have to have more information. Because if you want to be an informed consumer, having some standards on what information you want and selecting your healthcare providers, both at a network level and a physician level, are things that the government can help set those standards and communicate some of your choices. We also believe that when it comes to reducing Medicaid costs, part of our problem in New York State is we push those costs down to the county level, and mandates are then having to be fulfilled at the county level, and that's the largest driver for property tax increases. So I'm in favor of an approach that has been advocated to not force the individual counties to be having to carry through on that, as it should be a state level decision instead of unfunded at the county level. There's a lot that we can do to make more people available, accessing healthcare. We want to continue to expand its application. That is one of the outcomes from the Affordable Care Act, with more people getting coverage today than there was before the Affordable Care Act. And if I had my choice, I would do the whole thing over. But as we look at reforms on the Affordable Care Act, we will certainly do whatever can be done to increase the scope of coverage so fewer people are left without coverage, and at the same time work harder at bringing down the escalating cost of healthcare by providing more consumer choice and more information so that informed consumers can make the choices that will bring costs down.
Thank you, Mr. Raveney. 3 minutes from Ms. Myers.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but I can't let it go by that my dad started in 1948. I pretty much guarantee that there's more employees here in Broome County than there was and this is a math question for our students, that if you have 47 people who need to grow the business by being near an airport that is a national carrier's hub, and then those 47 people, let's see, turn that into 37,000 jobs, and over 3,000 are in New York State. Let's just leave it at that. I don't believe that people are interested in hearing the back and forth bashing and people that are entitled to their own opinion but not their own facts. And that's why on my website, I put up a fact check. And instead of bothering you with, a defensive, I think to be a good member of Congress, you need to be on the offensive. And one of the things we need to be on the offensive for is health care for everyone. I believe that it is not only a right, but it's an obligation and it's a need for every person in this country to have affordable, quality health care. There's a number of reasons why we spend more on health care and have less positive outcomes. Although we do have the most positive survival rate for cancer in this hospital, which shows where a lot of our dollars are going. But we have to also address the issue of poverty. That's what often creates the chronic diseases that cost our healthcare system a lot. But to the Affordable Health Care Act, is it perfect? By absolutely no means. Should it be just scrapped and start over? I'm not sure if that means amend it and fix it and call it by something else. I really don't, doesn't matter to me, as long as it's fixed. You can still call it the Affordable Health Care Act, you can still call it Obamacare, you can call it whatever you want, but it is a policy that ensures quality health care for all of its citizens. And we need to get to the table, we need to find out what's working, what's not working. It has worked for some people, it has definitely not worked for others, and it's been a detriment to others. For example, having the right people at the table. As a member of the Board of Education for 18 years, I really don't think when the Affordable Health Care was enacted that anybody thought that the good quality health insurance that our public school teachers have would qualify as a Cadillac tax, and school districts would be forced to pay $1 million fines out of their budget to cover that. That's an unintended consequence that needs to be addressed along with other unintended consequences that isn't working. But the main fact is, get to the table, fix it, and make it so that it works for everyone. And however that happens to work, I don't care if it comes from a Democrat, it comes from a Republican, it really doesn't matter. Just stop the bickering, stop the fighting, stop the finger pointing, and get it done.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Now, we'd like to turn to the audience. For a short period of time, allow if there are any questions from the audience, please keep them brief. And each of the candidates will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Is there anybody with a question for the candidates? Oh, I'm sorry. We'd like to get students first if we have one. Yes, please.
I have a question for Mr. Babinett. I've seen his flyers and stuff, but he talks a lot about job creation. And I know he's had one successful business, but I also heard about a couple business failures. Could you the air over that? I heard about something with upstate New York. They're in a business that failed. And you say the job creator, so could you just explain that?
I don't have any business that has started and failed. I've only started 2 companies. One of them is a large public company today called TriNet, and the second company is a startup that is developing software as a service to help groups connect their members. The company is called Intranet. I have been very involved these last 6 years, and through my nonprofit that I created called Upstate Venture Connect, that has as its mission helping our next generation of entrepreneurs create companies in these new industries right here in upstate New York. And those companies have, they spread a complete gamut of different emerging technology industries. They spread the complete gamut in terms of geography across upstate New York. And I'm very proud to say that more than 12,000 people around upstate New York are affiliated in some fashion with our nonprofit to join this effort to help this next generation of job creators. So there are no business failures of mine that I can think of. Obviously, as an early stage investor, not every business that I invest in will be successful. So maybe that's something that has triggered your question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Van Nick. Ms. Myers, do you wish to address this question? If not, we can move.
Sure. I will say that starting new businesses and failure, sometimes you learn more from failure than you do from success. The Dick's Sporting Goods that my dad started in 1948, when he opened his second location, he did fail. As a matter of fact, he lost everything. And he sold everything, his house, his cars. My brother and my mom and him moved in with my grandmother. And then he started all over again, and he learned from that lesson. But when he failed, he refused. This is a story he told me himself. He refused to let one single creditor go unpaid. And he started all over again. We built it back up, and it made us very cautious when my siblings and I were expanding the business. Made us very, very cautious. And by the way, 0 tax cuts to go to Pennsylvania. Just that little caveat there. But sometimes in failure, you have great success because it teaches you more than if you did succeed unequivocally.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Tenney?
Yeah, I think what's critically important here is that failing also often helps you understand businesses. But I think what people need to understand is, my opponents both are worth between $50 and $150 million each. They both have their businesses, and all the money was made outside of New York. They both businesses, whether Ms. Myers likes to admit it or not, there's an article in the Pennsylvania newspaper describing $10.5 million headed Ed Stack in 2005, and many other millions of dollars. Mr. Babinek's businesses, just in 2014 and 2015 alone, have received $16 million in tax credits. Now that's great that they've been successful, but that's government picking winners and losers, exactly what Mr. Babinek is against. My company, on the other hand, is a small business that doesn't rely on any kind of government business. We don't get tax breaks. We might get a low interest loan, but we're investing in New York. We're investing in our companies. And the problem is when you're profiting off of the taxpayers, whatever you do it, whether it's Obamacare, that's government picking winners and losers. Government needs to get out of the way. We need to reduce regulations and reduce taxes so everyone has a fair shot, not the people that government picks to win.
Thank you, Ms. Tenney. Is there another question? In the back?
Where do each of the candidates stand on the Citizens United decision?
The question is, where do each of the candidates stand on the Citizens United decision of the Supreme Court? And we'll move to Ms. Myers, who's next.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because Citizens United clearly needs to be overturned. That is what's created super PACs. That's what has created so much money in politics that it is just completely out of control. And I would be in favor of that as, quite frankly, that's one of the very few things in Congress that unites both parties, that they feel that that was a decision that really does need to be overturned. In Broome County here, we haven't had a congressional member of Congress in over 50 years. And I was told by people that this race should cost the four Citizens United somewhere about $300,000 to run a campaign. It now is going to create, or is going to cost millions of dollars. That's ridiculous. And the fundraising that goes on about it, unless you can write a check for it, is ridiculous. So yes, I would be very much in favor of overturning Citizens United.
Thank you, Ms. Tenney.
Thank you. How about this? I support Citizens United because it's about the First Amendment. I don't like what the super PACs are doing. And Ms. Myers, if she wants to denounce the millions and millions in a super PAC ads that are being done by Nancy Pelosi and the House Majority PAC, fueled by corrupt dictator Ray Halberter, who has donated heavily to House Majority PAC right now, a person who is probably the biggest tax cheat in the nation, is getting involved in that. She should denounce those ads. I mean, they're both self-funding multimillionaires. I'm the one from the modest income. I'm leading in the polls. I'm not against Citizens United. It's a First Amendment right. But we all need to understand that the way and the methodology that's going on with funding campaigns needs to be exposed. People need to know where this money's coming from and where it's going. I agree with that aspect of it. But as far as First Amendment rights, that's the most important amendment we have in this country, and I signed an oath, and I'm going to uphold it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tenney. Mr. Babbitt, 1 minute.
I can't help but, before I answer this question, harken back to an earlier comment that was made about tax credits. Tax credits, I would have to argue, especially with an attorney who certainly knows, tax credits are not government picking winners and losers, because tax credits are
Absolutely.
offered to any company who qualifies. And so there's a really big variation in definition here that I think any voter is smart enough to pick up. But on the question of Citizens United, and especially the notion of what is called dark money, this is where large super PACs are not required to disclose who their donors are. I would point out this is very corruptive, and it is absolutely a tremendous problem in our whole election process. I am the only candidate here today that can make the following two claims. First, I don't run any negative ads. I have never paid a dime to be running negative ads against other candidates. And number two, I'm the only candidate who has not accepted a dime of money from these special interest PACs, including the very 501c4s that the Citizens United decision was intended to address. So I speak by my actions.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. One last question? Yes.
And business for all three people. The issue is jobs. What would you do, if you were elected to our Congress, what would you do to create jobs so people can go back to work?
The question is, what would you do to create jobs so that people come to work? Ms. Tenney, first.
Thank you. As I've said before, the most important way that we create jobs is to get government out of the way. And as Mr. Babinek says, stop picking winners and losers. Absolutely. And let me tell you, as an attorney and someone who did pretty well in corporate tax, a tax credit is a credit against a tax that you would give to the taxpayers. That's $16 million that would have gone to the taxpayers that has been given back to Mr. Babinek's company so that they continue to invest, and he can enrich his wealth with this Delaware corporation that is making money in Silicon Valley, not here in New York. But we need to reduce taxes, regulation, the bureaucracy, and stop cronyism and corruption, the kind of cronyism and corruption that is evidenced by people like Andrew Cuomo, with 9 of his closest confidants, 2 of them particularly, hauled out last week by the U.S. Attorney. Sheldon Silver, Dean Skelos, these people who are engaged in this type of activity, where they're taking our money, hard-earned taxpayers' money, and giving it to corporations in exchange for payouts. Thank you.
1 minute. Thank you, Mr. Babbitt.
I'm also in agreement that less regulation and lower taxes will help us create more jobs. There's no question about that, and I do believe in both of those principles. But I'm also a believer that most of your politicians will tell you they're going to create jobs, and their vision of creating jobs beyond less taxes and lower regulation oftentimes falls into this bucket of business attraction. And what they mean by that is they take our tax dollars and they give it largely to large corporations who then are going to open some plant to create jobs. And our politicians have been doing this for the last 4 decades here in upstate New York, and it's not working. So my jobs plan is very specific. In the real world, entrepreneurs create companies, companies hire people, and we're in a generation right now where the opportunities in these newer industries have never been better for people to start these companies. Whether it's in software, creating medical devices, or products and services that can be sold to non-local audiences that our next generation wants to work in. And with the right environment, they can create these companies right here. This is what I've been doing for the last 6 years. If you visit our website at uvc.org, you can read up on it and see that there is much that can be done to help people create companies, which in turn create jobs. And that's why I'm running for office.
Thank you, Mr. Babbitt. Ms. Myers, 1 minute, and then we'll move to closing statements.
Thank you very much. Yes, job creation is the #1 thing, and there's a number of ways to create jobs. If anybody tells you they have the one plan, I would question that. It's a we. It's we create jobs, and we need to improve our infrastructure in order for businesses to be able to thrive. We need to look at what is a business-friendly environment. We can say that tax breaks are horrible and we're giving our government taxes away. Dick's Sporting Goods is putting a brand new distribution center right here in Broome County that's going to create 500 jobs. And if you think that you're going to have less taxes by that not being here instead of more taxes, it could go to any other state. A lot of our jobs, a lot of our businesses have moved out of here because New York State is an unfriendly place to do business. And we have to make, if our area wants jobs, we have to make it a business friendly. Do we have to reduce regulations? Absolutely. Do we have to make it less burdensome for businesses to be here? Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Now we'll move to closing statements. The first statement will be from Ms. Myers.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to address all of you. I'm running for Congress because I love this area. I'm running for Congress because I'm one of the most blessed people I know in this world. I truly am, and doesn't fall short on me every single day. One of the things that I've been blessed with in this area was a public school education that was fabulous. My 8th grade teacher had a profound impact on me, and she taught U.S. history. She was an immigrant, and she said, in the United States of America, the government doesn't work unless you participate. It's a participatory government. That's one of the reasons why I'm in this race, is we need to participate. We need to bring jobs to this area. We need to have a business-friendly environment. We need to improve our educational system that will create jobs by aligning the jobs of the future with the educational systems that we have today. Nanotechnology, coding. We can do it if we have the right people in Congress who are there for the right reason, who don't care what the politics are, that are just there to get things done. I'm Kim Myers, and that's why I'm running for the United States Congress.
Thank you. Ms. Tennant.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for coming out today. And this is a critically important race for a number of reasons. As I outlined in the very beginning, there are 3 issues that a member of Congress has to be cognizant of, and what's plaguing our nation right now. When our federal government was created, the number one reason it was created was for national defense and border security. That's the primary role. Also, the government has to deal with economic issues, especially the Congress is enumerated in Article 1, Section 8. Among those is dealing with trade. And we have a huge trade deficit now in this country. And it's particularly interesting that Broome County and this region and the Utica Rural region are listed as one of the worst areas as far as job creation, job growth. Part of that is because of terrible trade deals that have been negotiated by people who are interested in cronyism and corruption, quite honestly, and helping globalists decide what we're going to do. I've been fighting against it on the state level. It's something, again, it's the picking winners and losers, and I'm running against 2 people who really typify that. And quite honestly, education is very important, but education is not the function of the federal government. We know what the federal government does with education. It's called Common Core. They've imposed their values on us, on our state and local governments, and I know Kim understands that as a person that's been on the education board. Her resume sounds like someone who should be running for the state assembly, because that's where education needs to have someone to replace someone like me, who's been a champion on the education committee. But that's not something that the federal government should be doing. We should be taking the money and making sure that our local school districts are relieved from taxes and are able to survive. We've burdened our taxpayers with enormous taxes, not just in Broome, but throughout this entire district. Again, the other thing I talk about is security. Security is really important. We have a border that we need to protect. Whether you build a wall or a virtual wall, you hear about that a lot. We need to keep our citizens safe. This is about protecting our citizens. It's about, yes, we want immigrants to come here. We welcome them to our schools, but we want to make sure the right people are coming in here who want to live the American dream, who believe in freedom, who believe in individual rights, and are going to have an allegiance to our country. And we need to protect those things. That's what a member of Congress does. That's what I'm prepared to do. And as your next congressperson, I will be honored to do that for the residents of this community. Thank you so much for tonight, or this afternoon.
Thanks. It's getting on to tonight.
It is.
Thank you, Ms.
Almost.
Mr. Benedict.
Thank you.
Closing statement.
About 100 years ago, my grandfather immigrated from Slovakia and settled in my hometown, Little Falls. And he raised a family, including my dad, and both my dad and my grandfather dreamed about their next generation doing better than they did. My dad ended up working in factories as an electrician. It was a highly skilled job. My dad and mom raised 7 children, 6 of whom went on to college, and their dream was fulfilled. And I was the luckiest of the group. Lucky not only for that experience of working around the world and learning a lot, but I've told people many times, if I had tried to start my company, TriNet, in upstate New York, with what I knew back in 1988, same guy, same idea, I would have failed. The difference really was the environment. So when I moved back to my hometown of Wolf Falls, I really did make it my mission to try to take what I've learned and who I've met along the way to enable other people to start companies, because this is the American dream. One of the things that I've been very proud of is the opportunity to help these entrepreneurs around all of upstate New York embark on their own American dream, and at the same time help others as they start these companies and bring more people along with them. When you think about who you're going to elect as a congressman, you want to have someone who has the mind, heart, and soul to represent you. The mind to really sit through all the range of opportunities that a congressman has to be involved with and pick the right things to focus on. The heart to recognize that in making these decisions, it's not just about people that look like me or the people that are in my circumstance, but people that come from all walks of the district with different lives. But most importantly, the soul that has the conviction to make the right choices on behalf of the district without being beholden to party ideology or party bosses or things that are not important to the voters of the district. If you believe I'm that person, I hope you'll visit our website at babinetforcongress.com and let us know if you'd be interested in volunteering and being part of our campaign. I ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Babinek. That concludes our debate. On behalf of the sponsors, I'd like to thank all of the candidates for a robust sharing of their views and for their participation. And I want to urge our audience to be sure to vote on Tuesday, November 8th. Please proceed to clear the hall as soon as possible.
Well, I'm sure you guys ask him how breakfast is. Yeah, how breakfast. They just woke up or something.
Are you guys going to be streaming the whole thing on Time Warner Cable News? Or?
It won't be live, but there'll be a report up there. There'll be like a smaller version at about, what is it now, like noonish?
Yeah.
Probably be like a shorter version about 2, 3, and then like a longer feature package about 6.
Nice, cool.
But it'll be online too, so if you guys want to.
Awesome.
Yeah, same for ours. It'll be online tonight, same too.
Okay, and you're with
WBNG.
Cool, awesome. Excellent.
Good meeting you.
Yeah, you too.